what is your job?
My job, I'm an Illinois Conservation Police Officer. I work for the Department of Natural Resources, and I am in the enforcement branch of the Department of Natural Resources, so I am a police officer for them. My training or my authority is I am a peace officer for the state of Illinois. I have full police powers to enforce all the laws of the state of Illinois, anywhere in the state of Illinois. And going along with that, because of the unique job that we have, I have gone through additional training through the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and I carry U.S. Credentials as a warden for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Police.
Does that mean that you could work anywhere in the U.S.?
Theoretically, yes, but our charter, if you will, is specific to just the states surrounding Illinois. If an investigation went beyond that, I'd have to have permission both from the governor and from the Department of Interior Secretary, to be able to do that. But theoretically, I could. And I've had one case that went to San Diego, California. Unfortunately, I didn't get to go there, but we arrested the person in San Diego because of me. Yes.
How long have you been working? How long have you been on the job, working as an officer?
As an officer, I have just completed my 24th year last October, so I'm in my 25th year now as a police officer. And I started the department when I got out of college. I went to work I worked at a high school as a seasonal employee for the Department of Natural Resources over at Morrison Rockwood State Park. And when I got out of school, I got a job as a maintenance worker with the department at Prophetstown State Park, Big Bend Conservation Area. And then a year and a month after that, I got promoted to ranger down at San Andrews State Forest in Peoria. It was while I was stationed there that I applied for this job and got this job. And in our job, because of our credentials, I'm a graduate of the Illinois State Police Academy. And that's where we receive our law enforcement training. And in addition to the training that we receive at the State Police Academy, then we have our own academy, which we house at the State Police Academy. And it takes us into all of the environmental laws, the fish and game laws, boating laws, and then of course, because of where we work, we have to pass a swimming test to get into the job. And that's, believe it or not, we're hiring a new class right now, and that negates quite a few applicants because they can't swim. And in our job, we're on the water a lot. So you have to be able to survive if you go into the water. So we have cold water survival and operation of the specialty boats everywhere from a kayak to a 36-foot Boston Whaler Defiance out on Lake Michigan. So there's a lot of additional training that we have to go through to get and keep our certifications to hold our job.
Okay.
What is your role in Oregon and the park system here?
In this area specifically, because we are blessed with having so many state parks, state forests, and nature preserves, really we're very blessed in the Oregon area with all the parks we do have. And my job in enforcement, the enforcement section, is to provide law enforcement coverage for those parks to make sure they're safe for everyone to use. That while people are enjoying the parks, that they use them correctly so that they don't take exotic species, or not an exotic species, but protected species, that they don't kill too many, deer or whatever other game they might be after. That when they're at the parks, that they, that they behave correctly. They don't litter, and they have their dogs on leashes, and they don't go there to cause trouble, criminal activity, deviant sexual type behaviors. We're the police force for the Illinois State Park, the Illinois State Parks. And along with that, we do a lot of police type work where we arrest people, but as importantly, and probably just as importantly, is all the educational work we do. Because people go to parks, and we live so close to Chicago, where there's a big metropolitan area, and really, believe it or not, a lot of people will come out to the parks. They have no idea how to behave correctly. They think they're in a city, and they don't realize that by doing certain things, they might damage something or interfere with someone else's enjoyment of the site, or do something that would be very unsafe, because many of the areas we have here in Oregon are also open to hunting during the fall seasons. So there are safety issues that are involved. So a lot of what I do is educational, and I've always been a believer. The 20-some years I've been an officer, my first job is to educate. If I can educate somebody, if I can find somebody in violation, and it's a minor violation, and I can educate them so that they do it correctly, then they'll have a better enjoyment of the outdoors, and then we'll have our parks protected. So much of what we do here in Oregon is just that, provide law enforcement coverage for the park system that we have here in the area, which includes the Rock River. So that the enforcement side of that, along with that goes, I am a boat accident reconstructionist, so if there's a bad accident or there's a serious hunting accident, then we have the task of investigating those things. One that I'm involved in right now is a hunting accident, which has gone to involuntary manslaughter charges against the shooter. So they're very complex criminal investigations, that do take place. In this case, a very remote setting. This was in Joe Davis County. It wasn't in Oregon. Along with that, because we do have a lot of wildland areas here, so to speak, people do get lost. They get hurt. And so our training as conservation officers, we're trained in search and rescue, both land and water search and rescue, and we do conduct search and rescue missions if someone gets hurt or they're lost or whatever. So, we do that part. But that's how we support the local parks in our area.
And why do you like living in Oregon? What's one of the biggest things you get out of it?
Personally, living in Oregon is the parks.
Okay.
All of the parks that we have, including our parks district here in town, I think it adds a lot to my quality of life, the quality of life for my family, and that the biggest draw for me when we moved here for our family was the parks.
What's your fondest memory of the Rock River?
Well, I was going to bring the pictures today, but I thought I would probably embarrass you. It's the day that you learn how to kayak out on the river, because you ought to see her. She's just a little bitty thing, and she's in this 17-foot kayak out on the Rock River, and she handled it very well. So it's the times that I spend in the parks here with my family.
And have you seen an increased number of people coming to the parks now, or has it declined?
This year, for whatever reason, and I haven't studied it yet, but I just got these statistics not too long ago when I had to go to Springfield to present a presentation to the chief. Our attendance actually declined last year, and I can't quite explain that. The attendance of the local state parks is still pretty high. They're still busy, but the attendance actually went down last year.
Is there a reason you can think of for that, or nothing at all? And how do they keep track of the attendance?
Well, it's not a real scientific way. A lot of them are traffic counters that are on the roads as you go in and out of the parks. The forest, at Loudon Miller State Forest, we use the amount of hunters that go into the forest. That's gone up, actually. And the reason probably for that, and it's probably important to you guys in your project here from what I know of it, is another thing about the parks in our area. White Pine State Park, Loudon State Park, Loudon Miller State Park, Franklin Creek State Natural Area are those that obviously are right in this area. They're also, not only are they open to camping and picnicking and fishing and all kinds of other day use type things, they also have hunting during the hunting seasons, and oftentimes we do close those parks down for other than hunters during that time of year. The thing is, too, we are so close to the metropolitan area, there are fewer and fewer places for people to go and hunt. And hunting, whether you like hunting or not, it is an important part of the ecosystem and wildlife populations and so forth. It's also a great sport. So there has been an increase in the pressure that's been put on us for that. That's something, and that is something that is heavily regulated because of the safety issues that are involved in that. It requires a lot of our time, both day and night. But I would have thought, actually, because of the economy, that more people would have been coming to the parks, but I didn't see that this year. The attendance actually went down.
Okay.
And where do you see the park and river going in the next few years, and what will it mean to Oregon?
Well, thankfully, Oregon is the community of Oregon is very in tune with the value that we have here of our parks. We have different groups in town, not-for-profit groups and volunteer groups that do a lot to try to promote, the river and the parks, both in town and the state parks. Because of the economy of the state of Illinois, there are some issues, within state government as far as the ability to fund these parks. If you guys recall, a few years ago, the parks were closed down for a period of time because theoretically there wasn't enough money, to keep the gates open. If you were to go through the park, and I'm not going to sit here and say that everything is rosy and everything's great with our parks, because it's not. I think that they're very highly endangered. If you look at the roads are falling apart. If you look at the staff, there's no one that works in these parks anymore. The Oregon Park District has more people working for them than we have in all of our state parks, the thousands and thousands of acres of state parks and natural areas that we have in Oregon. If you were to look at, there's probably state-owned properties, there's probably 10,000 acres of state-owned ground near Oregon, and in managing the campgrounds and the hunting programs and the day use areas and the boat launches and everything else, there's probably less than 10 people that do all that work. And those parks are open, in some cases, 24 hours a day. The day use areas closed down at sundown or certain times. Campgrounds are open 24 hours a day. We maintain the campgrounds year-round, 24 hours a day. That doesn't mean they're always staffed, but there is just the infrastructure of the parks, the staffing of the parks, the ability for the managers of the parks to take good care of them, so that when you guys go there to use the parks, enjoy the parks, that the facilities are maintained correctly and they're safe, and that they're the health standards and all that stuff is together, and also that the trail system is well marked and it's free of other, it doesn't have to be perfectly clean, obviously, but you want to be able to go on a nice trail, and when you go to the park, and my responsibility is that when you go to the park is safe, that you don't have someone there that could cause harm to you, or that can cause harm to the park.
And what can people do to keep the parks and river looking nice, and maybe to even improve, how you said, with like the roads or other?
Well, a couple things that people can do, and one thing is that I know your group is doing this with when you're studying the parks and the natural resources that surround Oregon, and that's a very good thing. You can draw attention to it. When people go to the parks, if all of us that use the parks, if we go there and we follow the laws and we take care of it, we learn the principles of no trace. That when we go there, we don't want to have an impact on the park. We don't want to leave behind ruts in the grass or litter that's left behind. We don't want to pick flowers or damage trees, or when we hunt legally so that everyone has a fair opportunity. And that is a major thing in the hunting programs, is that when people, there are so few places for people to hunt. And these folks that come to these parks to hunt, they don't have anywhere else. And when they get there, if someone is not following the laws, if they're violating the laws in a number of different ways that I won't go into right now, it takes away their enjoyment. And so when we go to the parks, if we as users, if we learn to use them correctly, if we learn about the trees and the plants and the animals that are there, our area, just last weekend when I was out hiking myself, I saw bald eagles, I saw pileated woodpeckers. I know where there's a place where there's river otters, and I just learned a few moments ago where there are some Indians buried at Loudoun-Miller State Forest. That is neat. Think about that. You're hiking in an area where Black Hawk once roamed, And so people, to appreciate the parks, to learn about what's there, and to want to protect it, along with that goes that we can be involved in the political arena in communicating to our legislatures and our city fathers that these places are important to us, and they do need to be protected, and we do need to properly fund them and make certain that they're staffed correctly, and not to give jobs to people, and which that happens, but to just correctly staff them so that we can provide the services to the public that they need. And the one thing I might say, there's a big difference between the Oregon Park District, for example, and the state conservation or the DNR sites in some ways, in that our areas are managed to be more wildland areas. So they don't need the intense labor, they don't need the intense manpower that you might have here in town, you know, to run a ball diamond, for example. Because these are more wildland areas, and that's the beauty of them. And that is what makes Oregon really neat, in that you have a choice. As a citizen, you have a choice. Do you want to go to a city park, walk your dog on a nice asphalt trail where there's no mosquitoes probably going to bite you and no briars that'll catch your pants? Or would you rather go to a single track dirt path that may or may not be really well marked, but that you can kind of adventure out a little bit more? Or maybe even go off the trail and adventure. There's all kinds of opportunities for us here for that.